Hi, I'm Harut Markarian, and this is Mobility and Inclusion, the show where we share the powerful stories of people with disabilities and daring entrepreneurs making waves in our world. From technological innovations to best practices in business, we'll learn what it really means to live in an inclusive and universally designed environment. Hello, everyone. This is Mobility and Inclusion. I am Harut Markarian, and my guest today is the artist who creates a better world of art with his mouth, Robert Florio. Rob graduated from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh in 2007 with a bachelor's in video game art and design. When he is not painting, he can be found performing at local comedy venues in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. Rob, welcome to the show.
What's up, everybody? So nice to be here. This is fun. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So tell me what got you into painting with your mouth?
Well, I've always been an artist when I was a kid, but something just called me to it, and it was like really creative, and it took me a while to get used to the fact that I have to do that, but not with my hands. So, I mean, it was really motivational for me. It was kind of like a huge release to create and those higher energies of creation. Back then was just came so natural. It was, after a spinal cord injury, C4 in 1996. It was such a dark time. It was like anything to get out of that was my escape, and I just lived in painting much as I could.
That's awesome. So what kind of paintings do you do?
Oh, that's a good question. I started doing like portraits of dogs and people, like oils and watercolors. Then I started
Mhm.
getting acrylics, but now I do like illustrations for like a comic book I'm working on. Been working on that for like many years. Someday I'll get it, completed.
Uh-huh.
I was really blessed to meet the Mouth and Foot Association, the Mouth and Foot Painters Association
Yep.
worldwide, and so I do some paintings for them now,
Oh,
like
nice.
every
So do
yeah.
you circulate your work throughout the world?
I'm working on that. Yes,
That's awesome, man. That's great. So how you mentioned that that was a dark time for you when I guess 1996 you said?
yes,
Yeah, so when you had your injury, right?
yes.
Okay, and how was I'm kind of curious, how was that transition from what you knew you were and then what you now have to, you know, get accustomed to? How was that transition for you?
It was very weird. In general, just having other people that I did not know from other countries. Some people were local, like nurses and things like that, but my parents took a huge role in taking care of me.
Mhm.
And my two older brothers, they help sometimes, and my sister, she's the oldest, and I'm the youngest. Going from an athlete at 14 years old, you know, I was
Yep.
getting in trouble a lot, not focusing on school at all.
Mhm.
And then it's really bizarre to be taken out of your body and put into another. And like you're told, you have to get used to this now. It's like, what? I don't know. Don't know if I can do that.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you say that. I was an athlete all my life as well, and it was hard for me to get used to uh, transitioning from being an athlete to being now in some not in athletic world, right? So I can only imagine what you felt when you know you had to give that up unwillingly, really, um, so but for everything there's a higher reason, like more powerful stuff that you're into right now, like the comedy, like the painting. And So how did you take me through the process? How did you start learning to paint with your mouth? Who taught you? Who introduced you to the tools that you can use with your mouth to paint? And how easy, how hard it was?
Well, first I went to thanks for the question. I went to the school at Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore for a couple years, and there was a teacher there, Mr. Chambers, Alex Chambers, and gave me a mouth stick and some watercolor set. And on the first painting, I did this amazing like beach scene with like a tropical tree, you know, like a, and then I did like a drawing sketch of a brain sitting on like a pedestal, and the title was just Brain Smart, and it got like second or third place on one of their contests.
Wow.
After that, I was just like, I'm just gonna keep doing this. Really, it was just about drowning out as much as I could
Mhm.
the depression, and you know, I have a baseball field right in front of my house, so the hardest thing for me was hearing the kids playing, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I don't know, it was just like all my friends in the neighborhood, just nobody came to see me. Started going to private school in another county,
Mhm.
and just lost touch with everyone, and it was just like snowballed. I didn't even know what was happening. It was just like I couldn't face myself and all the friends I had in a public school setting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it in like special education. My mom was like, "Oh no 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 no," and I was like, "Okay." So I went to a school with a private school, and even there, I it was weird. I became friends with all the geeky kids there. I was the jock,
Mm.
converted into like the kid that no one wanted to talk to or hang out with. But
Yeah.
when they did come over and talk to me, they were like, "Someone's actually giving me attention," and we would always develop that. It was, and they had a baseball team, so I was like, "What am I doing to myself?" Like, oh my god, like the mind screw was just
Yeah.
like every day, and it was
Yeah.
a Christian school, so
Mhm.
I had a lot of faith at that time. But it was like me saying, "Universe, God, please just give me a talent or something just to get through this. Something that I can say to the world, I'm really talented still, and I can do this." And um, that opened up like visions that I had in that dark tunnel in the hospital for like 6 months. I stayed in a hospital.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool, man. It's pretty interesting how the transition happens, right? And the, I mean, again, everything happens for a specific reason, and I believe that things happen to us to better ourselves, right? And now I'm pretty sure right now you're a better artist because of what happened to you. Maybe if the injury didn't happen to you, you would have been good at something else. But that doesn't mean that after the injury, you know, that goodness is gone from your life. It just the good came in a different way than you had anticipated, maybe. So it's always a win-win situation, in my opinion, at least. And what do you do right now other than painting?
Oh God, what do I not do?
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like you're more involved right now, because a lot of people, unfortunately, there's that stigma perception, right? When they see someone in a wheelchair, then they see someone with a disability, they have these um, predetermined uh, conceptions, if you will, of what this guy can or cannot do. So tell us what you are doing other than painting, which your paintings are great, by the way. I'm checking that out on your website. They're phenomenal. I'm telling you, like I was like shocked. I've watched a few of your videos painting with your mouth too. So it's really good. I encourage everyone to go to robertflorio.com to check out Rob's paintings and know more about Rob.
Wow, that was really nice for you to say that.
Yeah, of
I
course,
don't know.
man. I think you have a real talent here, and your artwork is great. You have a book, you have an art portfolio, and talk to us about the comic book. What's
Okay,
holding you up there?
what's holding me up? It's a comic book. It's hard to market a comic book. I
Mhm,
did my book, and I was like looking for a publisher. It got really discouraging because they were like, you either have to be super famous or like dead to get world recognition. So, um, where do I start? I guess after high school. I graduated a year after I should have, just because it was just a lot to take on, and I wasn't like in a great place. I actually went to the community college my senior year for a couple of classes,
mhm,
art classes. So now, like, um, phew, now is like a great time to be like talking to you right now because I did the stand up starting in 2008 or 9, I believe. So it's been like 10 or 11 years, but I haven't done that in the past 3 or 4 years. And
mhm.
I'll tell you why. I stopped painting in the last 3 or 4 years. I'll tell you why. Um, so I had surgery on my neck, and that two of them, there was some pinching nerves, and and then the screw was too close. So I was like, let's take the hardware out. And it took me like 3 years, and I had 4 outer body experiences like 3 years ago because of the
Mhm.
and the narcotics and the hospital visits and the
Yep.
back bowels and the bloating stomach and the insane headaches and high blood pressures. I mean, I'm lucky to be here. Like 240 over like 160. Like you, I don't know. It's since I was a kid, I was very like determined.
Mhm.
I was like kids in the neighborhood would come find me to do their dirty work. Rob, this kid's being a pain in the butt. He's messing with us. Come beat him up. And I'm like, oh, okay. All I had to do was stand in front of kids, and they would just run away.
Yeah.
After my injury, it was kind of like the opposite. Like you got what you deserve, jerk. Like that's how I felt. So I had to really overcome that, and now it's like I do a lot of meditation. I've rediscovered my faith, but not so much faith in like Christ or Buddha. Some of that,
Uh,
more so like meditating through like elevating your energy,
Yep.
envisioning what it would feel like, and then following up with that with like gratitude. And the neck pain a couple weeks ago is when I really started taking this serious. So this is like very serendipitous that you reached out, and my friend Lisa, who's a great marketer and everything, and I met her a year ago, so things started coming together. So I guess what
Awesome.
I'm really trying to say is I'm looking for ways to like put my talents together now in a way that like I can support myself
Mhm.
and inspire other people. I don't know if I got off track on the question, but
No, no, you didn't. And I wanted to. Um, you mentioned something about the publisher kind of like shut you down in one way or another, right? Meaning you either got to be famous to sell your comic book, or to be famous with it, or you have to be dead. Is that what you said?
yeah, that's how I
Well,
felt. I was,
I'm like, I don't believe in that, and I think
I know,
uh, publishers publishers lately have really lost their touch with their business model. A lot of people are self-publishing, which you can
right.
do as well. And I have self-published my book, which is also called Mobility and Inclusion. Um, and you know it's easy to do, and if you go through the correct path, um, it's easy to market, and it's easy get a good revenue from. I encourage you to look at that path as well. But talking about publishing my book, in my book, I talk about how video gaming can be accessible. And I saw somewhere in on your website that you like video games, correct?
Right, right.
Yep. So how did you make video games more accessible to you?
That's a really cool question because my favorite video game growing up was Earthworm Jim, and I played it all the time. I never conquered it, but that little guy took his head off, and he had like a worm head, and every time he would whip it, he'd go wow, wow, and it's jump. I just fell in love with that, and I was like in rehab after my injury, I'm just laying there looking at the Nintendo, and I'm like couldn't play it. So I was like,
Mhm.
one day I want to learn how to make games to help people play them. So after high school, I went and I applied for like a grant through like a state program, funded program.
Mhm.
And I was like, there at first, we're like, there's no work for this around here. So you have to travel to get work for that. I mean, but we have Bethesda Softworks and some other in the area. And so I qualified and I was like, whoa, okay. Better 4 years later, I graduated from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh online
Mhm.
for game art design. And I wrote to the game design conference in California, San Jose, 2010, for a scholarship to attend. So I won. I was like one out of 200. I showed up, and there was a woman named Michelle Hin, and she was my mentor for the disability special interest group,
Mhm.
um, the IGDA. And I told her, I said, I have all the Matrix games, right, that were made. I loved playing them with my mouth. There was a special controller called the Quad Stick, I think. There's a newer version of it now, but and I said I started looking up the game Earthworm Jim again in school, and I looked up the video game, my second favorite game, which were all the Matrix video games, like, and they were made by David Perry, the same guy who made Earthworm Jim.
Uh-huh.
I said I want to meet that guy. So we were at the conference, and I just told him I was like, this is really crazy that you know I'm meeting you, and he signed all my stuff, and I made a documentary, which the trailer is on my website and online. I have two channels, but it's a little confusing. But I think the documentary was called "A New Way to Live."
Mhm.
And my book is called "Life" with an exclamation mark. It must be a comedy. And so he invited me to do a volunteer game with like 20,000 other game designers that signed up to do this game. And like a year and a half, 2 years later, like a handful, like maybe 20 of us were even left. And the game was really cool. It was like these beasts that you had to like procreate and ride them and race them. And it didn't get to the next level of produced, but it was
Yeah.
amazing to get recognition from him. And ever since then, like I started looking into going to work for companies, and I was like, well, there weren't any intern jobs available, so I kind of gave up. In a way, my neck pain got kind of worse. Then I went through a horrible breakup. An amazing woman, I thought amazing for a couple of weeks, a couple of weeks, and uh, my brother Adriano was like, "What do you want to do? Like you have a purpose." And he was telling me this, and I was crying. And I was like, I don't know, I want to get some tattoos. So for a couple of years, I just got tattooed up, and I was surrounded by all these artists and friends, and I was like, wow, there's people out there who will accept me. I was always in the house all the time. So that just led to one thing after another, and it was like me relearning how to socialize.
Mhm.
It was crazy. It was crazy. Like it was just simple, stupid things. Like a hot girl would walk into the tattoo shop, and I'm like, huh? I just start talking and like
Yeah.
saying things that You normally don't say. And my buddies would be like, Rob, you don't talk to girls like that. You just don't. Like, I'll tell you what to do. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So that was my reinitiation. I usually tell a joke. I'm like, for me, learning how to socialize again was the learning curve was steeper than a stripper learning to climb a pole. It was, you know, all at once just coming at me. Like those guys are out there, like they're exposed. They
Yeah.
they live life like not like you might think, but that was like appealing to me. I kind of got lost in that for a little while. Um,
That's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure that the socialization skills or the proper way of socializing again took quite a bit of energy on your end. Even though I don't believe it should have taken that much energy, and this is not because of you. It's because our society, unfortunately, it's not built in a way, in an accessible way, right? It's not we don't have my show is called Mobility and Inclusion, and the inclusion I talk about is really on a spiritual level, right? We are all spiritual beings, so it doesn't, and the spirit doesn't differentiate between ability, disability, colors, and religion, right? We are all the same. We are all love. We are all part of the creator, right? So, and that's why my show is called Mobility and Inclusion, and that's really what I mean with the mobility and inclusion. I had another guest in my show that uh, she's not someone with disability, but part of her education was to put herself in a wheelchair for a few hours and go around town with it, right? And she was telling me her experience, and she was saying that people look at, like, avoid looking at her, avoid making eye contact, right? They know she was there, they're aware that she's there, but they don't want to acknowledge her presence, right? So it was like an uncomfortable situation for them, so they decided to avoid it, right? And I think that's what really sucks, because we should all acknowledge each other. We should all extend gratitude and extend hellos to each other, because we all are here and we all deserve to live in a similar way, right? So that was really interesting how you adapted to the social life again. Now take us through your comedy shows. How many shows have you done so far?
I really I love your questions. It's like really cool to talk about this stuff.
Cool.
I um I probably did maybe like I don't know somewhere between 30 maybe 30 shows, um maybe more.
That's quite a lot. I mean, I'm impressed.
It was what happened was like I started like liking it. Like I went to the Baltimore Comedy Factory. Thank you, by the way. And they had like this contest, and I just for 2 weeks wrote some jokes and just narrowed them down. And I went on stage or in front of the stage, and you can actually go on YouTube and see my very first time doing stand up. The nurse with me at the time was really sweetheart. She was laughing so hard she forgot to hit record. So like the first two or three jokes they didn't get caught, but the rest of the set was like you can just hear people erupting. Because I went on stage and I was like, I got real quiet. I looked around, just letting people like build that like weird tension, right? And then I
Uh-huh.
just bursted out acting like Timmy from South Park. I'm like, Timmy, what, Timmy? And people were like liking that, and I was like, let me just clarify, I am not Timmy. Now here are some other jokes, and it was fun, and so I got into that a lot, and I started recognizing that like doing some of the like stand up other shows around
Hmm.
was a lot different than that show, and the bureaucracy and some of the thick skin that you have to develop being a comedian. And I started noticing. that like I was getting out, and it was like 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years doing this. And my original story was connected to my artwork when I wrote my book,
Hmm.
and I started feeling a lot more pain in my neck. So I started taking more and more oxycodone to go out. And it was came to the point where I was like, I thought that was normal. I'm like, give me some of that. I'm gonna go do a show tonight. I got a nurse that luckily wants to take me. Um, so that kind of got out of control only because the pain was underlining. It was masked.
Hmm.
So um, my original story, which I didn't tell you about, was I was an athlete, and I saw my favorite baseball player, Baltimore Orioles, and his name was Jay Gibbons. Big guy, like red hair, has like huge swinging potential, just muscular and really cool. I was like, I want to meet that guy, right? So a few weeks or months later, I'm at BestBuy.com and I see this guy checking out big screen TVs. I was like, oh my God, is that him? So I introduced myself and I was like, I'm your biggest fan. Can I paint your portrait? He was like, sure. So that our relationship and going to the games and then his home run derby fundraisers to help me and you know Emmy nominated story on WBAL News and Fox 45 and 1090 AM with Steve Davis, Associated Press award winning story. So I started writing a book and I was like, people want to hear this. I got really discouraged that I couldn't get mobile enough to share that book. And, it was like these big, grandiose things that I'm like, I envisioned for myself. And I didn't realize that it might take more time than I knew. I always felt like I'm so special, everything's going to happen, which is good to have that feeling, it carries you far. So, I mean, there's a lot of facets about my life and interests
Yeah,
that,
well, I think you are special, and I think you should expect things to happen regardless, right? In my opinion, well, this is what I talk to people as well. So I do mindset coaching for athletes right now. And what I tell them, if you don't expect it, you will not receive it and you will not get it, right? So you should expect it and you have to aim as high as possible, like ridiculously high. And expect that you're going to achieve to that whatever target you are aiming at, right? Because that's what's going to make you grow, that's what's going to make you try harder. Because and when I say that, you really have to put your expectations where your wants are really are, right? So something that you really want, through your core that you actually want this to happen for you, then you should expect put a very high expectations on what you really want. If it's not something that you want and you're indifferent about it, then it's not going to work. So I'll tell that to anybody. But if you know what you want, which for a lot of people, that's very hard thing. A lot of people don't know what they want. They're like, oh, I want $1 million. Well, everybody wants $1 million. Well, why do you want that? What's the purpose behind it, and why $1 million? What are you going to do with the $1 million? So all these, and the $1 million is just a vague example right now, but let's say if you want to be a painter, then an artist, right, to paint. So what kind of painting? Who are you going to paint? What are the portfolios? And by the way, if you want to check out Rob's portfolios, you can go to his website, robertflorio.com, and that's RobertFlorio.com, and you can check all his work out. And I believe they can even purchase your artwork, correct, from your website?
yeah, I did set up a good system
Yeah.
on that.
Cool. So yeah, so go check it out. He has really amazing stuff. Um, and lastly, Robert, I want to just say that as a progressive and evolving beings, we are where we are to that we may learn and that we may grow, right? So this goes for everyone, really. We are where we are because we're going to learn from our experience and we're going to grow. Nothing is by mistake. right? So I tell that to everybody. And I want to thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having you with us today. I hope you had fun. Um, and again, I want to encourage everyone to go to Robert's website. It's robertflorio.com, and to check his work out, to check his book out. It's really amazing what he does with his mouth and the paintings. It's really encouraging. It's really, really inspirational. Thank you, Rob, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Harut Markarian. I'll see you all next time.